Good morning, everybody. It's September 1st. I'm Karen Fleshman, founder of Racy Conversations and of Collect Our Cousins, the weekly live stream for white people like me who want to learn how to become more effective in our conversations with white people in our lives. And today we have a very special edition. We're doing something slightly different. I am joined here by Future Cain and four women who just graduated from our first cohort of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. Woo! And we want to talk with you about white women, Black women, and the world we make together. So why don't I kick it to you, Future, to describe a little bit about what we're going to say, and then we want to hear from everyone who's joining us this morning.
Woo! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're zoning in from, because we all live in different time zones across this world as we are representing here today. I think what's important to know is, as women, I would say we're worn out while also worrying about our own wellness and our own communities that we have, and then the relationships outside of our communities, because we care about humanity. And that is why each woman that you see here before today, I would say, came to say, I want to be part of the sisterhood to move us together, because it's more than me, it's a we. And in our discussion today, it's important for people to understand the impact that coming collectively together can have, while also co-creating spaces. But in addition to that, I think it is important that we start to have these continued conversations and get vulnerable, because we are women. We are the people who oftentimes are carrying a large burden, whether that's in your workplace, in your community, or possibly even with children if you have them. And we have to be the ones to model what we want to see. So I'm going to pause and throw it back to you, Karen.
And I just heard from two women who I'm so grateful are here this morning. Kristen Bigres is joining us from Montreal, and Dana Brownlee is joining us. Yay! And Dana Brownlee played a key role in bringing Future and me together. So Future and I have met each other on LinkedIn. We had a great video call and got to know each other better. And I was seeking a really great co-facilitator to run this cohort of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. And I reached out to Dana, and she's like, I think I know the exact person for you. And that's how Future and I connected to make this possible. So huge hugs and shout out to you, Dana Brownlee. And if you're not following Dana and reading her Fortune articles, she is a must follow. As well as Kristen Bigres, very active on Clubhouse, and just an awesome person to learn from. But welcome, everybody, and let's hear from our esteemed guests. Why don't we start with you, Cynthia? Do you want to share about who you are and how you came to be a part of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition?
Sure, I would be happy to. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you. It's great to be reunited with my classmates. My name is Cynthia Overton. I work for the KPOR Center. We're a racial justice organization really focused on advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the tech industry. I have been following Karen's work for years, and was really delighted to learn about this opportunity to participate in the sisterhood, because essentially a lot of my work, of course, involves convincing people to really expand their views and thinking. So that was really my interest in joining this group, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have had the opportunity, and how much the last few months has meant to me in terms of learning and growing with these amazing women.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And if y'all aren't following Cynthia and the work of the KPOR Center, you must. This is systems thinking. This is how we change the entire tech leaky pipeline, as the KPOR Center calls it, from pre-K all the way into tech. How are we going to get the true America represented in tech, and Cynthia is brilliant and an incredible speaker, and also about the metaverse and Web 3.0, which I thank God we have voices like Cynthia's guiding us, because if not, I would not be able to understand very much about that subject.
Thank you, Karen.
Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Karen, thank you. Hi, my name is Andrea Dunn, and I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I joined the Sisterhood because I wanted to make connections with like minded women. I've learned so much here. They are a great community. You will learn a lot. I learned about Future. I followed her on LinkedIn, and then she was having live teachings, and and she invited me to them, and I attended all of them, and they were amazing. And I was like, I want to get to know this lady better. And I received an invitation to join the Sisterhood, and here I am. And I thank you guys. You're all amazing.
You are amazing, Andrea. Oh my God. We learned so much from you, and just your vulnerability and your power and your grace. You just infused the space with such energy and growth for everyone. I'm very, very grateful you were a part of it. Future, I'll kick it to you to intro our other guests this morning.
Okay. I am going to share the mic with Rachel and then Joe.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It is, as Cynthia said, so lovely to see everybody again. I work in leadership and organizational development, and I'm an executive coach. I've been doing DEI practitioner work for a while, but I have been avid followers of Karen and Future for a while, and so I was a little bit starstruck when I saw this opportunity and the ability to speak with them and learn more about what they were trying to accomplish. I joined the community because I feel like you need to be proximate with people who identify differently than you in order to do good in the world. And as a white Jewish woman, I'm never done learning, I'm never done growing. And I wanted to continue that in a safe space. And I learned so much from the incredible women in this cohort. It was a wonderful experience, and I would highly recommend it to anybody.
Joe?
Thank you. Everything that I might have said. So I had a very similar experience, I think, to you, Andrea, that I was approached by Future, and I was like, "Oh, Future asked me to come." And these are people that I've seen, and I follow both Karen and Future, but I just felt the invitation came at a really good time, because I had done some work before, I think, and I started a lot of my work in white affinity groups, because people said, look, before you do anything, the thing that's really important is to do no harm. And it felt like the next stage was to, try and use some of that learning and to be in a different echo chamber. So I was really excited to be invited, and felt like I think that I'm as ready as I could be at the moment, although you're never entirely ready. And I think what was fantastic about learning with this group, and I felt like I learned about entirely new things. There was great analysis, there was great conversations, there was great dialogue, but it's also actually, I think you said, Rachel, about being in proximity. Like when you see other people's reactions as well as yours, you learn from that. So being alongside and being in a very sort of organic group of women, it just felt like it felt like the work was an amazing place to be in. So it really, really did feel transformational. So thank you all. And it's good to see you.
You're on mute, Karen.
Yes, I muted because there was a siren in the background. Sorry about that. And thank you so much for that, Joe. And that's like such a perfect transition to what we want to talk about today, because it's so interesting that you raised that. Like early in my journey to allyship, I heard a lot, oh, you should be in white affinity space. You should be in white affinity space. And I was like, white affinity space? I don't want anything to do with white people. I can't stand white people. Why on earth would I want to hang out with a bunch of white people? That is the last thing I want. Now I have completely converted over. And I think it is really important to have both spaces, both a white affinity space and a collective space for our growth and healing. But there's things we need to work through. And and sometimes those things, if we work through in an integrated space, we can cause harm. And so we need to work through it in an affinity space, but in an affinity space that is also accountable and is also, does not become a comfort space. Does that sound right to you, Future?
Mm-hmm. I think what's important, what we tried to create is just with our whole process. We spent a lot of time together. It was months that this group spent together, and it was 8 sessions of a long time, some up to more than 2 hours, and usually anywhere between an hour and 15 minutes to over 2 hours. And during that time, while we had what we wanted, everything that we did was co-created. And I think that's what a lot of places are not choosing to do. Even from the beginning of the process of application, if you looked at it, we interviewed every single person to ensure that this would be a safe space for as many people from diverse backgrounds as we could. We tried to look for diversity in a variety of different ways, not just in race. And also with the laying a groundwork and foundation that felt good and safe, where people could also show up as their authentic self while asking questions and being curious, but then growing too. So I think it really takes us saying, we're going to do a whole unlearning to then relearn to create something very different than what some people are choosing to do in the world.
100%. And that goes to what we're creating now, what we're co-creating now. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. So the plan is, we've seen what has happened in the last 2.5 years, right? And I think people keep spinning in their hearts and their minds of what is happening. And while it is what is happening, I still have to get up in the morning, and I still have to care for my kids. I still have to go to my job. I still have to say hi and be neighborly. And I still have to do things in my own community and society. And at the same time, because two truths can be the truth at the same time, it is, I have to hold my heart and my mind for humanity. And how are we doing that? And I think a lot of women, especially women who are white, realize the powers and privileges in which they have, and maybe are not completely understanding how they could help instead of harm. So that is one of the whys of why we said, okay, we're going to create something, because we see that things keep just coming, whether it's political things, whether it's other humanity that's not at the political level, it may be at your state level. Things keep happening, and we keep saying, we didn't see this coming. And many of us are saying, we've been warning you of this. How did you not see this coming? And at the same time, how are you being proactive and preventative for your own wellness, but then for your own humanity and then others' humanity? So I think that's why we said, okay, we need to create something to build more community, and to give a foundation of where we can go with white women.
Yes. So we are launching a mini cohort. It's not a months long deep dive, it's a mini cohort for white women exclusively. That's going to be launching in September, and we're going to be sharing out the application for that in this live. And the reason why we wanted to bring folks together today is to hear from folks, in what ways do white women need to change in order to be ready for interracial sisterhood? And Andrea and Cynthia, if you could speak to that from your perspective, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Would you like me to start?
Sure.
Okay. So, one of the things that really struck me in the class, and I've spoken about this before, was a monologue that we got to see by the late great actress Bea Richards, who was just an incredible, wonderful talent. But because of when she was born, she was only allowed to play like maids and mothers, right? So, if she were born, 50 years, maybe more later, she would, have many more opportunities that she had. But nevertheless, she really found the strength to really kind of question and challenge white women to really think and reflect about their own oppression that they've experienced from white men, and then thinking about what that means in terms of fighting for rights for all women, right? Not just white women. And I think that, Karen or Future earlier made a comment really about, networks. I think it was Future, about networks and the role of networks and connections play in terms of how we're able to engage with one another and speak and get to know one another. And it's really interesting. I was startled by some stats, and I'm just going to read them to you. White Americans have networks that are 93% white. 75% of white folks have entirely white social networks without any minority presence. So I think that it's really important. This is one of the reasons that I think that the sisterhood is so important, because it helps to build networks and connections. But going back to the point Bea's point in terms of, hey, think about how you're oppressed as well in terms of white women. I have some more stats here. It wasn't until the 60s that women gained the right to open a bank account. And then until 1974, women were not allowed to get credit cards or, other credit lines of credit without their husband's signature. So the whole point here in terms of connecting the dots is that white women, in terms of proximity to the folks who are causing a lot of the oppression for white women, Black women, all women, have a lot more power than I think that they are using when it comes to influencing and persuading. But I think that the message that Future and Karen, I think, has brought home so beautifully is that it's not just about advocating for white women, it's about advocating for all women. And we see the effects of this when we think about the right to vote. Oh, women didn't get the right to vote until 100 years ago. Okay, that was white women who got the right to vote 100 years ago. Black women were left behind. And unfortunately, when it comes to gender equity, unfortunately, women of color are not included in, who is being advocated for. So I love this. I love this experience because it really kind of shed light on what's happening in a bigger society, understanding that there are systems and issues in place that date back far beyond any of us. And it's a matter of how we choose to react and to respond and play in this game that's going to determine how the generations that come behind us are going to fare in society. So, I'm not sure where we'll be in my lifetime. My new friend Andrea is much more optimistic, or I should say, I am now more optimistic having listened to Andrea. But I think that we all have a very important role to play when it comes for standing up for each other. And I just am so grateful for Andrea and the rest of my sisters who have really helped to inform my thinking in this area. So, yeah.
Are we going to be the cycle breaker or the perpetuator? That is the question. Thank you so much for that,
beautiful.
Cynthia. That was beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, everything that Cynthia said, yeah, it was perfectly put together, perfectly on point. What I would want from white women everywhere is to learn your history, learn your true history. Not everything that's true is written in a book. You have to go deeper. Find out what really happened. Reveal it to your children, and take these untruths that are being taught rampantly and toss them aside. Because we were created, all of us as human beings, equally. Equally. And this is taught, the separation between white women and Black women, that was taught. That was taught. And if it was taught, it can be untaught. And what I would like for you to do is show up for me when I'm in the boardroom, when I'm speaking, when you see me being mistreated or being shut down or disvalued. Don't pull me aside after the meeting and tell me I think that was a bad thing that happened to you. I know it was a bad thing. You knew it too. Say something while it's happening. Stop it. You can stop the cycle. You have a lot of power, and we are not your enemies. We never were. We never were, and we never will be. That narrative needs to be broken. Thank you.
Thank you. To breaking the narratives and recreating new narratives, because words matter and the narratives matter. And they've had a grave impact on our society and humanity, as we continue to see. I think it's also important, Rachel and Joe, for you to speak too, just embodying whiteness, your lived experiences and the views in which you held and maybe then expanded on from sitting and co-creating what we co-created together may have changed. But the question that we'd love for you to both answer, and I'll go with Joe first this time on this one, is what would you say to white women? If you could say anything to white women to help, what would you say as a white woman to other white women?
Thank you, Future. I think for me, if I really thought about how do you prepare yourself for this journey and this work, you have to be present, you have to make space. And you have to recognize some of these mechanisms that are perfectly working to keep you from that purpose. So you can't be too busy. You can't say, oh, but I got this. Those things are all things that are, when you don't see things, that is by design. And you may know things in the right situation. So we can maybe have a fantastic conversation in our sisterhood, but you have to take that thinking and that practice into your other spaces. So your words and your actions have to come from your best thinking. And to do that, you have to interrupt some of those processes, like, oh, I'm so busy, I've got this, I've got that. And you have to make emotional space for that. So slowing down, that was definitely a big lesson. Slow down and do it right. Slow down, be your best self, and be open and reflective. And you won't always get it right, because I think if we have to ditch perfectionism, because if we're too worried about getting it wrong in our own egos, we're going to be spinning round and round and we're not going to get any further. So you have to be prepared to get it wrong, feel your shame, and pick it up and do it again. It has to be persistent effort. It's not one and done. You'll be doing this for the rest of your life.
Thank you, Joe. What I'm going to embody for a moment is one of our sisters who is in here. And she says, slow the F down, right? Slow the F down, because we're running through life. And why I didn't get on this marathon. Why did I even put I'm not lacing my shoes up to be on this marathon. Stop, be present. And I keep screaming from the rooftops to people of, you're missing so many beautiful moments by not being present. You're missing so many. Why are we doing this? You can have an ease to your life and be present. And what you will see is a beauty that you have missed for how many years you've been on this earth. Rachel, passing it over to you.
I'm thinking, because I've agreed with everything that I've heard, and I don't want to repeat. I just want to add some things. what I have been thinking about a lot is a couple of things, and it touches on what I heard from Andrea and also from Joe and Cynthia. I just agree with everything that comes out of your mouth all the time, so I can't even touch that. Is that there's this notion of scarcity going on so much in the world right now. This notion that if you get what you need, I'm going to get less, that it's a fixed pie. And I just couldn't disagree with it more. And I think, especially as a white woman, I have a responsibility to think about how I grow the pie. And not only because it's the right thing to do for those who aren't getting what they deserve, what they need, equitable opportunity, but we all benefit when there are more people and perspectives at the table. Better things happen. It's more enjoyable. It's, to your point, beautiful. And the other thing that I see a lot is this fear of engaging because you're going to screw up. Newsflash, you are going to screw up. I screw up all the time. The thing is, that can't be your reason for not engaging and trying to break the cycle, as we say. You just got to own it when you screw up, apologize for the harm that you've caused, and commit to never doing it again. And, join me in that. I'm very human and have done it many times, and know that I will continue to accidentally step in it, but that's not a reason to exit the work.
Mm-hmm. I want to lift up that I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name, Margit lifted, are we perpetuating or breaking the cycle? And I feel it's kind of a mixture of both. She was saying that sounds like a very binary question. And I agree with you, Margit. We are constantly in that conundrum, right? And there's times when we do say, oh, I'm just going to remain in my comfort zone and not break the cycle. And then there's times when we say, you know what, I'm going to break out of my comfort zone and I'm going to do something disruptive. And what we're trying to do in the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition is build the muscle to be able to be disruptive, to build our capacity to be disruptive, and to stop shirking our responsibility and move forward. And something happened in the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. I want to go into the detail where we really got tested and we really lived that experience together. And it was so powerful for everyone to have this container where we could remain in community and collectively work through and make whole the person who was harmed in this process. And we all grew so much from that, I think, learning that it's not about, this isn't like a tennis match, like, but how can we stay in community and heal collectively from harm and learn how not to perpetuate that harm? Is that a fair description, Future?
Mm-hmm. I think when those things happen, because here's the reality. As much as people want to say, well, I'm in this fight for equity, if you can't see and hear the inequities, you can't really be in the fight. I'm going to repeat that again. As much as you want to claim and believe that you are in this fight for equity, and I'm not going to disagree, I truly believe there's tens of thousands of millions probably of people that are like, yeah, I'm in this fight. I'm posting, I'm doing all this stuff. Yes. And at the same time, it is more than that. Because if you are sitting at your own workplace tables or your own kitchen table or your own community table, and if you can't see and hear the inequities that are taking place right before your eyes and your ears and your body, and you don't say anything or do anything, I'm going to ask you to truly reflect on, are you really in this fight for equity? And all we're saying that we would want to do, which we did during this cohort, was when something happened, we brought it to the surface. And a lot of people said, I didn't even see it, or I did see it and I didn't say something. So I think, again, I go back to what Andrea had said, is if you see something, say something. That's all we're asking you to do. But people would rather stay silent than speak up and say something. Okay.
I want to lift up what Kristen said. Margie also said it's so hard to be present because being present doesn't feel safe on a really deep level from my experience. Yeah, so that was also what had happened. Like, people were not fully present and they didn't notice. So we're trying to build that container where we are psychologically safe to be fully present and pay attention to what is going on, which is also a very important muscle to develop. As you were talking about, Future, in our world, we're so addled from everything we're bombarded with. So to develop the practice of, okay, I'm going to slow down. And even though we're not physically in the room together, I am going to really pay attention to what is going on and not be distracted in a million different directions, is also something that we're trying to build the capacity for.
I think one of the points that we often talked about was, as we'll go back to the one sister who said, slow the F down. It's about the two versions of mindful. Is your mind so full that you aren't even in your mind, that you can't be mindful? Those are two different things. My mind being full and me being mindful. If your mind's too full, you're not going to catch the inequities. If you're being mindful and fully present, it is easier to see and hear and be, so that we can create that society that most of us, I think, are dreaming of. It could be better. It could be better.
It could be much better. And I'm telling you, white women, we are the key to everything. We are the key to changing the outcome of elections. We are the key to changing the culture in our schools. We are the key to changing the culture in the workplace, because we hold so much power. And I go back to, are we going to use that power to perpetuate existing inequities and not be sisters? Or are we going to say, you know what? This system does not serve me, and it does not serve my sisters. And I am going to ally with the folks who are my real allies, with the folks who fought for me to have my rights, because we would not have protection from any form of workplace discrimination as white women if it weren't for Black people and the civil rights movement. That's where our rights originated from. So we need to be sisters and extending those protections. We know that the laws changed and discrimination is illegal. And we know that 60 years later, discrimination is pervasive and the racial wealth gap is widening. And so, white women, are we going to be the ones to say, you know what, enough? We're going to grow the pie for everybody.
Okay, so with that being enough, I think one of the questions is, for people listening, we could say what we can do as facilitators if people choose to partner with us on this journey. And at the same time, I will also say it is much better when I want to join anything to actually hear from the people who were part of it, because we could say whatever we want as facilitators and what the participants feel is very different. So I think it's important to hear from you all of, how did you grow? What is the result? Because we're through this months of journeying. And we all know that this chapter has closed and we're going on to a new chapter of growth and of journeying. And at the same time, if you could tell the people in the audience one or two things of your growth, what would it be? And I know I have to go with somebody. So I am going to start with Andrea.
Oh, thanks, Future. That's a loaded question. for me. I would say being present was one of my strong points, because I will honestly say I get pulled in so many directions. I was just checking the box. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. But I was not fully present. But now I am. I'm practicing being present, being in the moment, paying close attention to what's being said, how it's being said, and why it's being said. And I'm allocating that in not just work, but in every part of my life, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference in how I show up, and it makes a difference in how people come to me. And I've noticed it, and I thank you guys for teaching me how to do that.
You're welcome. Rachel.
I have to echo the presence piece. I think I spent a lot of time reflecting about how I can live according to my espoused values, as you say, Future. You can say that you believe in something and you can genuinely mean it, but if you can't act on it, what does that really mean? So I was reminded of the importance of presence and focus. And I'll also just say that anytime, as I mentioned earlier, when you're proximate to people who have different histories, different backgrounds, different life experiences, this always makes my life richer. I don't, it's like, it's not rocket science. So the other thing that I gained is, beautiful connection to beautiful people.
Joe, and then Cynthia.
Yeah, it's hard not to keep echoing, but I suppose I think I would call it embodiment as well, because I think sometimes you can know something and then you have experiences which make you feel it at a different level. And the thing that you knew, you know differently because you feel it throughout your body. And I think the thing that I keeps coming to my mind, and I feel like I have much more every day, these ideas are much more with me rather than only with me when I have read them. But I'm thinking about, I can't remember the exact quote, but Resmaa Menakem said something about women, white women particularly, being there's so much urgency and so much stuckness all at the same time. And I just thought, I heard that before, and now I really feel it in my body. And thinking about how do you respond to that differently? How do you don't go running in, because urgency doesn't help either, because you're more likely to mess up. You think, what can I do? And you know, nothing like that. So it's not that simple, or we'd have done it already. But how can I be unstuck without being frenetic? Because I think it's about that delicate balance of in between. And I think what I feel like grew in this community, and with the people, it feels like that proximity, that connectivity, and a community to make you feel a little bit more confident about how you navigate those two things. Because I think that's the thing, is like, it's about now you know it, now you have to keep doing it. And what keeps you in that space, and I think brave and safe in the same, as much as you can in the same space. I think it's that, it's definitely a feeling. It's hard to put into words, as you can hear. I hope that you can get some idea of it. So it's about a feeling of embodiment of ideas that were in my head, and now they're down in my body in a deeper level.
Thank you. Cynthia. You're on mute.
Sorry, I kind of feel like I'm in the third grade and I want to say, oh, they took my answer. But I would definitely underscore the whole presence piece. I feel as though this group and these discussions, and even as we think about the ground rules that we had that encouraged being present, that was helpful. I believe that that presence has led to greater compassion I am definitely not a feeler. But I would say experiencing this group has really helped me just in terms of emotion and being more compassionate and empathetic. And then, it was very interesting in terms of the life experiences. I mean, I think about myself as a Black woman. And leaving this, and I mean, this is going to seem like duh to everybody else, right? But this was, a realization that I actually had, is that my experiences as a Black woman are not the same as other Black women. And I was just, it was very eye opening to me. It also made me understand the position of privilege in terms of my environment. I work for a racial justice organization. So there are a lot of comforts that I have that come with just not having to deal with all of the stuff that a lot of people of color have to deal with, because I'm surrounded by like-minded folks who are understand and are sensitive to such issues. And it was also interesting in terms of, I think back to 2020 after George Floyd was murdered. And that was the first time in my life, I'm 51 years old, the first time in my life that I've seen white folks on the street marching and advocating and standing up and taking a stance on position of Black folks. Now, fast forward between 2020 and now, I still had not been in a room really where I've seen white folks choosing to come to the table to have these conversations and to be vulnerable and willing to make mistakes and, just take it and keep it moving. So for me, it was just very enlightening in terms of being able to connect with more closely with the people that I feel we really need on our side to advance equity. Like I said, I saw thousands in the street in 2020, but in real life, this is really one of the very few, I won't say the only, but the very few experiences I really got to connect with folks who were interested in taking a more intense and personalized approach to racial justice.
I don't know if you were going to say something, Karen, so I didn't want to talk over
well,
you.
I was just going to say this is such a perfect segue to why we are now creating this special cohort for white women, because it is about building up that muscle so that we can come to the table and participate in these conversations and stick around when it gets charged, and know how to put our best selves forward from the beginning so that we don't initiate by causing harm, but recognizing that even among people who've been on this journey for a long time, we still cause harm. And we all need to be accountable for the harm that we cause and remain in relationship and sustain these relationships. It's about growth and transformation and coming together. And that's why I'm so grateful for all of you who joined us here this morning, to hear about what we have to offer. And I hope that you will apply and share it with your networks too.
I think what's important too, Karen, is, and I know we're coming up on time soon, so I want to be mindful of that, is people don't go to spaces where they don't feel good. And I think maybe that is a reason why people aren't saying anything, because it's that uncomfort, the discomfort of, if I speak up and say something, then I am going to be made to feel some sort of way in my own body, or I believe other people will make me feel this way or feel this way towards me. And I think it's important to hear from you in 2 or 3 words. If you could say together collectively in this cohort how you were made to feel. If you could pick 3 words, 2 to 3 words of how you were made to feel, because people aren't going to go to spaces where they're not going to feel good. That's the reality, or they're not going to keep going back, right? You might go once or twice. I'm not going to keep signing up for that space. So if you could choose 2 to 3 words of how this space made you feel, what would you say? And I'm not going to call on anybody. I want anybody who, Cynthia, whoever wants to unmic, you go.
Heard, special, and safe.
We might be doing a Wordle of these things, okay?
Oh.
Okay.
Let me
Heard,
let me
special,
write
and
these
safe. I'm
down
gonna write
so
it.
I can
Okay.
pop them in a Wordle after this. I've become heard, special, and safe.
Can we do one at a time? For me, it's connected. That's the word that's in my mind. I'll come up with a couple more, but one at a time.
For me, I would say safe, seen, and worthy.
Safe, something, and worthy. What was the middle word?
Seen. SEEN, seen. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I would say welcome and supported.
Joe, do you want to add anything onto connected?
It's similar, and it's sort of it's the warmth. It felt like it was a very warm space. So it felt sort of emotionally connected, and it's sort of a very joyous. Actually, it's joyous.
I would add loving accountability.
Okay. I guess I'm going to add 2 then. I'm going to add safe, valued, and supported. Loved. I'm going to put loved in there.
Sprinkle that everywhere. Oh, my goodness. So we would love, thank you all who have joined us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for all of our interracial sisterhood cohort participants. We have the application ready for the white woman cohort. Please apply. We are enrolling now. We're going to launch it when we get the members in the 3rd week of September. So be on the lookout. We'll be doing more lives and everything to get people jazzed about coming to it. Anything you want to add, Future?
So I think in case you're joining us late, I just want to go back, rewind the tape so you don't have to watch the whole thing yourself. Just telling you what it is. So we are calling White Women Sisters to a cohort that's going to be a 3-part series. It's not going to be as long, but we are still going to do our fall deep dive as these women came to for our spring, but that will come after this. So this one is a 3-part series. It is 75 minutes or maybe a little extended if we need it for the 3 different times. It will be 3 times back to back. And because Karen and I love co-creating what is most convenient for other people, we often see workshops or master classes that this is the time and day. And I'm not saying that's bad for people. What I am saying, if we're trying to co-create spaces, then we have to co-create that space. So on the application, you're going to be able to put times and days that are most convenient for you. And then majority will rule of, okay, this is the time and day that most women can join. And we'll put the application in the chat comment area. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We're on LinkedIn and you could direct message us questions. I'm sure maybe you could even talk to Cynthia, Andrea, Joe, or Rachel if you truly want to get a behind the scenes questions and off camera. They might be open to answering any questions that you do have, but I'm hoping we can build this community together. That's my hope for my future, for my children's future, for my grandchildren that I have no idea who they are because my children are in elementary school, and just for humanity in general. Did I miss anything, Karen?
No, that's it. I just want to say thank you, Future, for being such an incredible partner. Thank you, Dana, for bringing Future and me together. Thank you, Cynthia, Andrea, Joe, Rachel. My God, we're so lucky to know you and to listen and learn from you and to be in community with you. And yeah. Oh, Dana has a great comment. There are so few safe spaces for people of different backgrounds to come together for authentic conversation about race. This is really special.
Thanks, Dana. Sending you love. And don't forget to look at Dana's work for Forbes. Okay. She puts out brilliant articles that, well, you want to think? She'll make you think. And sit in your own self-awareness.
Very well researched and very pointed. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask one question to go around as we close out, Karen?
Sure.
We talked about the safe space and feeling heard and warmth and just connected. The question that how will we receive the application? It will be in the comments. So we'll put it in the comments. There will be a link and you could fill it out. We ask everybody to sharing is caring. So if you know somebody, invite them. You could do it together with a group of friends. If that's going to make people feel more comfortable, we just want spaces where people can feel comfortable coming to so that you could get candid with yourself and with others. So we're going to ask everybody to share out love. So if you could tell the world something to leave them with, to hold in their heart and their mind for this time being in your own journey moving forward, what is the one or two things that you have to say? What's the one or two things that you want to tell people before you leave? And it doesn't have to be for us, right? It has to be for you personal and your own journey of where you would like humanity to be able to go.
I think that is uncomfortable sometimes as this work can be, and as hard and challenging as it is sometimes. I think grace is very important, and that means grace for myself when I disappoint myself sometimes, but then it also involves grace for others when there's opportunity for them to do better.
I would say peace. This journey is up and down. It's a lot to it. So peace is needed, internal peace. And if you have that, you can give it out.
I was thinking about the element of dialogue, that, you can't do this on your own. This is a conversation. This is thinking and conversation. And this is accountability and conversation and community. So when you get those elements, you're on a good path. You need to keep those elements. You can't just do it for a week.
I'm going to quote someone I respect very much, who I've recently had the privilege of learning from, Vince Brantley, who says the only way up is the way through. And that I think the only way that we get there is together. So that's what I would say.
Yes. I'm going to reflect on something that my mentor, Sweetwater Nanak, is always trying to teach me, and it took me a long time to hear. Sweetwater is a native Alaskan woman. She's Tlingit, and she comes from a long line of healers, and she's the founder of Idle No More Washington. She's an amazing activist for Native rights. And she taught me that so much of white activism is driven by fear and anger. And she said that's why white activism is so ineffective. She said Native activism is driven by spirit and is driven by love. And so what I try and do, because I get really angry and I am really scared. I'm scared about our future. But I know that if I ground my actions in those feelings, that's the vibration I'm going to give off. So I have to recenter myself and redirect myself into deep love, love of humanity. And that includes love of myself and acceptance of myself and all my humanity and my imperfections, and not feeling guilty or shameful, but embracing that I'm going to make mistakes along the way, and forgive myself for the things that I do wrong, but also forgive others, and just um, move in a spirit of love.
Those are all so beautiful. I'm going to go with something that I always say, and I'm calling people to do, is sit with yourself. And you have to sit with yourself, as dark as this journey can be. You are so much made of love and hope. And I think we've been tarnished. I think some of us have been jaded. I think we've been possibly shamed and maybe even worn out to see the depths of our love for humanity, because we're worn out and we can't continue. Sometimes I think we need rest. So I would tell everybody to just sit with themselves so that they can truly see what they embody and who they are, which might be an unlearning to relearn your rebirth of who you began as this journey many eons ago as, and where you are now, so that you can collectively show up for humanity, for yourself, for your community, for your loved ones, and for all your sisters. I'm going to pass it to you, Karen.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Cynthia, Andrea, Rachel, Joe, Future, all of our esteemed Kristen, Margit, Dana, Louis, Michael, all the way from Holland, Tanya, thank you for being here today. And yeah, let's just move forward with great love for each other and love for humanity, and have a beautiful day, everybody.